Welcome home to Homespun, a weekly internet gathering of family, friends, and businesses from Platte County. Our purpose is to connect our community and showcase the colorful threads that run through our tapestry. Grab a warm cup of hometown goodness, sit back, put your feet up, and visit with us a while. I'm your host, Mark DeLapp, and I bring to you portions of interviews from some of our own. Welcome home, Platte County, to Homespun. All right, we're here with Homespun today, and we are in Guernsey, Wyoming, home to Guernsey State Park, which is what they say here in Guernsey, the best kept secret in the United States, and not to say it too loud because they don't want anybody else here. So we are talking with, can you introduce yourself please to our audience?
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I'm Sarah from Cowan Flowers here in Guernsey.
And Sarah, how long have you run this flower shop here?
I've been gardening here for about 10 years, getting real serious in the flowers for about 5.
Okay, and so when did you actually open Cowan's? And is that your last name, Cowan?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're opening Cowan's flower shop about 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
And along with the Guernsey Farmers Market, it all came about in the same time frame, and I guess we've never looked back.
Okay, let's go back a little bit. You are not from the United States originally,
No.
and yet you don't have any accents, and you look like an all-American girl. So tell me a little bit about where you were born and how you grew up.
Thank you. I guess American is apple pie. Not really. I was born in South Africa, in Pretoria, South Africa, and my parents were expats and lived an adventurous life, and then they moved to England. So I spent most of my childhood bouncing around from continent to continent, and it was fantastic. And it only took me until I was about 14 to discover Wyoming, and we came out here on family vacations, and I think 14, 16, and then when I was 19, I actually lived up in Sheridan for a while, working on a ranch, and I just fell in love with this land and always wanted to come back. And so I guess the first chance I could get after I got my master's degree in teaching, I searched for a teaching job, and here we are, full circle.
And when you, where'd you graduate from high school then?
Kimberton Waldorf School in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Waldorf education is slightly different. It's based on the Rudolf Steiner philosophy.
Okay. All right.
Very creative, very artistic, and I was so blessed that I had parents that really valued a good education.
Okay. And what was your major course of study there as in that school?
Lots of stuff.
They really have you dabble in a lot of stuff, don't they?
Oh, it was fun. We did artwork, we did theology, and everything. It was very cool.
Yeah, and what was your favorite then, growing up?
I loved playing in the woods when I was growing up. Yeah, in Pennsylvania. I think that was my favorite thing. My sister and I built little forts, and we were always outside.
I wonder how your life would have changed had your parents moved you to a big city like Chicago or Los Angeles or things like that. But you move into the middle of Pennsylvania, which is pretty much farming community up there, and they have a lot of dairy farms in there, and a lot of Amish communities are there. So, what was your experience in moving to Pennsylvania for the first time?
Oh, it was fun. I think anytime you're picked up as a child and your environment changes, then it does affect maybe your sense of belonging. In a way, that's maybe why I found myself here, because in a roundabout kind of way, I feel like I belong. So.
And getting into Pennsylvania, you're maybe got in touch with your horticultural roots
Yes.
at that point. Did your parents ever make you have a garden or anything like that?
Oh, I think we probably tried several gardens. I think I remember planting potatoes when I was little, and then I lost interest.
Potatoes. That's a little far distance from Idaho or North Dakota.
I know. Yeah, but my dad always grew roses, and I was fascinated by his roses, and maybe a little bit of that, maybe because my grandfather wrote this amazing book on willows. He had a very big collection in England. And
On willows?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
It's a book. It's written by Christopher Newsholm, and it's all about the genus willow species. And I just remember as a child running up and down in his garden, and it was beautiful. I think maybe that's where I got the love for it.
And you read your grandfather's book as a child then?
As a teenager,
Yeah.
it's got a lot of fancy names in it, so it's
cool.
pretty technical.
How cool was that to have a grandfather that you actually read his book?
I know, yeah.
Not a lot of kids can say that.
Yeah, that's my granddad.
All right, so you read your book about your grandfather's willows.
Yeah.
And he grew those in England, did you say?
Yes,
Wow.
in Devon, England. Yes.
Wow. English, they're known for their English gardens, of course.
Yeah.
Beautiful English gardens. And I can see a little bit of a pattern here when I go into your backyard, and I see how you've kind of patterned your backyard and your flowers and your plants back there. It kind of reminded me of that when I first drove up, was an English garden.
Thank you.
Did you pattern it
I
that on
didn't do it
purpose?
on purpose.
Well, it looked really good, and once
Thanks.
that gets into full bloom back there, it's going to be absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, mid-July is when the first bouquets start going out.
Okay.
And then it's full run till about end of September, early October.
Okay. And for flowers that you don't grow here, do you ever fill orders for people as far as flowers that they need or flowers that they want?
I do not. I only grow what I'm capable of growing here in Wyoming. So anything that is out in my flower field is grown by hand, by seed. So I don't order in plants. I just start from scratch.
Sure. And do you specialize more in cut flowers or planted flowers?
That's a good question. I think I specialize probably more in cut flowers. I sell lots of bouquets of fresh flowers mixed, and lots of zinnias and big bright colors. But I also do house plants, and that's a trend now. I guess because of COVID-19, people are at home and they want to beautify their home.
Right.
So I propagate and I grow lots of houseplants, and then I've started shipping them out too.
Sure.
Yeah.
And with COVID, when you've got plants in the house, it just looks a lot better, but it's also healthier, isn't it?
I believe so. That it's something to do with the oxygen in the air.
Right. Plants will put out that oxygen, and it's actually healthy to have plants in your house, unless, of course, you're allergic to plants,
Sure.
which then that kind of defeats the purpose. But how did COVID affect your business?
Not much.
Okay.
Not much. Only because I'm very seasonal. So even though the gardening is a full-time, all year round sort of thing, I order seeds in January, and then progress through the year. But it really hasn't affected us because we're already socially distancing in Wyoming.
Sure.
That's just the nature of where we live, and so.
It's because we live so far away from one another.
So
we're automatically socially
yeah.
distanced, aren't we?
But this winter, I wanted a project where I could grow indoors, and so that's where the many African violets have come from. Is that
Sure.
that need to grow something even in the middle of the winter.
So you actually plant new plants, get your seeds in January. You plant your new plants that come up, but you also carry plants throughout the winter here too, correct?
I do.
And tell me a little bit about those plants that you carry all year round.
Sure. I grow specialty African violets. I'm a member of the African Violet Society of America. And it's such a fun
I didn't
group.
even know there was an African
It's so
Violet
fun.
Society of America.
It is the best.
Okay,
And-
hold that thought
yeah.
because I'm gonna get to that in just a minute. But keep on your
It's
train of
so
thought
fun.
here.
But I grow these plants from these tiny little leaves, and each plant takes approximately about a year to become established into blooming stage. And I keep them all in these tubs up in my beautiful kitchen, and it's so fun.
And that's where you grow your plants, is right here in the kitchen.
I do. Those
So-
are my indoor plants I grow here in the kitchen. We've got the beauty of this nice natural light, and so I've got about 250 African violets that'll be ready to go to the farmer's market starting Thursdays in Guernsey every week. And
Starts on the 30th of July this year.
30th of July.
Right.
That's the big day.
And you are, I talked to Clayton Johns, and he said that you are part of a master gardener.
Yes.
Okay, tell me a little bit about what a master gardener is.
It's a fabulous program.
That's national, right?
Yes. And I think that every county does it slightly differently. We're so lucky in Platte County to have Leroy Johns and Caleb Carter and all of these people that are here to support us as gardeners, and they have so much enthusiasm. So what happened, I guess, was a few years ago, I just I had 2 babies back to back, and I was teaching full time. Maybe I needed a little bit of an outlet, and so I decided I would take this class, and this would be something I would do for me. And that doesn't happen very often.
How old are your boys?
They're 6 and 7. But I think when I did the Master Gardener program, they were 6 months and maybe one year. They were little.
And they're at the needy stage at that point.
Oh yeah. And
Before you get them into daycare, you're it for them. And
Yeah.
how did you do that and do the master gardening at the same time?
it was tough. I had a very, very supportive husband,
Yeah.
poor Levi.
And Levi works for the police station here,
He
correct?
works for the railroad.
For the railroad,
Yeah,
okay.
He's the yard master on the railroad.
Okay.
Yeah, and so every Wednesday night I just ached to have my 3 hours to be able to go out and talk gardening, and it kept me going through the week. It was great.
It's amazing what people, where they find their peace, where they find their solace. For me, we had an urban garden growing up. My grandfather had a farm.
Oh.
So Mom always had to have a garden. And of course, for us kids, that was like going to hell every day because we had to do weeding and we had to do, the picking at night. We couldn't go on a date until we actually went out and picked 2 quarts of strawberries for her.
Green beans are the worst.
Yeah, that and strawberries, because the mosquitoes in Wisconsin are big enough to carry ticks. I mean, they are huge. Not really, but that's what they felt like. I mean, they were just like, it's kind of like you get out into the strawberry field and it's kind of you're like lunchtime for them. And you're like, what did they eat before we got here, And so it was not fun for me, but it seems like it's like a piece for some people. I'm actually considering starting my own business called Black Thumb Gardening, because I can guarantee killing your plants in just a very short period of time. So
It's challenging. I mean, and I've been doing it for years, and there's times when I'll just I'll need a moment and I'll go and sit in the lily patch and have a good cry.
Now, is that because of the garden not working the way you wanted to, or the family not working the way you
All of
wanted
it.
to? All of it. Yeah, life in general, right?
All of it.
John Lennon. Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans, right?
Absolutely. And for me, it's my place of refuge, my place where I can feel the ground and I can know that this is real, and there's this tiny seed, and I know that if I plant that seed and I take care of it and I do everything right, it's going to grow. And in the meantime, I'm also going to grow through the process.
Wish I had that kind of faith. See, because my attitude is, I know that if I plant this little seed in the ground, it's going to die. and I'm going to die right along with it. You know, so it's like you take the better attitude, I think, than I do. That's probably why you're successful in your gardening. And your flowers absolutely are gorgeous. So
Thank you.
let's go back just a little bit. Now you came from South Africa. You went to England. You were all over the world. Tell me about the time you actually came to this part of the country and you met your husband.
Wow. Yeah, that was an intense part of my life. It was 2008, and I'd just gotten back from Tanzania and spent the summer there in the most amazing circumstances. It was such a great trip, and it was one of those things where I knew that I'd had to leap into something unknown. I had this newfound teaching degree, and I promised myself that.
Where did you go to college to get your teaching degree?
I have a master's degree in teaching from Cabrini University.
Where's that at?
It's in Philadelphia.
Wow,
Yeah.
you had a master's in education.
Yeah.
Huh. And I thought I was doing good with a bachelor's of education. So, yeah, that's good. So you could actually be like in administration and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of growing students, you decided you were going to grow plants.
It was a transition.
Okay.
But yes, I think, but also similar in the same ways. You have this need to nurture, and whether it be through education or physically, it's that nurturing that sustains you.
Right. Was it elementary or was it secondary for you?
Elementary.
Elementary.
Mostly first grade.
Okay, I would have lost my hair. You know, one thing about plants, though, you gotta give it to plants, is they don't talk back.
They don't.
See, it was nice as a coach because I could hold something over their head, like, you know, if you guys don't listen to me, you're not going to play in the next game, which I could hold that over their heads for most part, you know. But here you are in elementary education, you got a master's in education, and you're teaching where?
I'm not teaching.
Oh, you're not teaching?
No.
You get your degree and you decide not to teach?
I taught for an entire decade.
Okay.
And after 10 years, I had two tiny little boys. One was
That's what I mean. Where were you teaching at for the 10 years?
in Wheatland and in Glendo
Okay.
and in Torrington
And what were you teaching?
and back in Pennsylvania. Mostly first grade, but also I did a lot in reading and Title I.
Okay.
So teaching those little ones how to form words and put those letters together to make sentences. It was fun. It was a blast.
Sure. So a decade of teaching is over, and you decide you're going to make a transition in your life. And scene. Go ahead.
I guess stay tuned.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, and I'm 37.
Yeah.
So the flowers, they bring me peace, and I really like the idea of working in a tangible way where you can see the results. I think teaching, as much fun as I had teaching and as wonderful as it was hard to go home at the end of the day and think, oh, maybe I made a difference. Maybe, I hope so. But, you know, when I'm planting flowers and planting an entire 30-row bed of raspberries, I can put that in the ground and I can move on and I can know that that is making a difference and that's real.
Yeah. So it's maybe a lack of patience, because sometimes these students will come back years later and tell you what an impact you had on their lives, which is true in my coaching and in my teaching, that they do come back. But see, I had that secondary education where, you know, elementary, I don't know if they're thinking about that at that point, you know. It's mostly lunch and recess at that point. And I was a TA one time for elementary education, and so that's what made me decide I didn't want to be in elementary education, was being a TA. So I went into secondary, and that was more successful for me. So you ended up quitting teaching, and did you have your children right away after you quit teaching, or did you have your children while you were teaching?
It was almost simultaneous. I had my first child in 2012 and my second child in 2014, and then I resigned from teaching in 2016. My youngest has some challenges, and I just felt the need to be at home.
Sure.
I was commuting so much in the snow with two babies.
All the way to Wheatland and Glendo? Oh my.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that would be like in this climate. going
So
back and
grateful
forth.
for the opportunity, though. I mean,
Yeah.
how cool. Yeah,
And I'm sure you've learned a lot.
absolutely.
What did you take to the garden that you learned in school?
It's a good question. Patience. And just having, I think maybe a sense of having faith that the seasons will come around again. Just like the school year will come around again. You know, you start off in January dreaming about the seeds that you want to plant, and then in May you get the lilies and the alliums, and then once it starts to get hotter, you get these most beautiful colors, and it all goes in a cycle, and it's a little bit, I suppose, resemblant of maybe our lives in general. Is that everything's gonna be okay, and things are gonna come around again.
That's awesome. You need to get a song by Harry Chapin called Circle Song,
Yeah.
which talks about the seasons changing and everything's in a circle. There's no straight lines.
Yeah.
So how did a teacher and a railroad worker find each other?
Well, there's a great bar in town. It's called Kelly's Bar, and on a whim, we just happened to be coming through. My best friend and I at the time, and we all just bumped into each other, and we never quite left.
So you came for a visit and you stayed for a lifetime, pretty much. And was it love at first sight for you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It still is every day.
Yeah, that is so awesome. That is so awesome. When other couples, who have gone through the quarantine, I guess the divorce rate is up now because of the quarantine.
I understand.
And I've heard that you don't ever wallpaper with your spouse. I don't know. I never had that experience, but so how do you guys get along, especially when he's got his off time?
It's hard. I think we respect each other. I think that's the most important thing. We see each other as individuals and also as a team. If I need a break, he might not always want to, but he'll give me a break, and the same with me. And I'll always make him his cup of coffee and make him his lunch for the railroad and support him as much as I can.
Sure. Now we know BNS staff is going to start cutting jobs.
Yes.
And is there a little bit of fear in the family right now?
Well, I can't say a whole lot on that subject.
Right.
Yes, I think it's been. I think it would be inappropriate to say that this has not affected us in a huge manner, a huge degree.
Sure.
Yeah.
And what, we don't want to say too much about it, and we don't want to obviously jeopardize his job or anything, but if there's a real possibility that this gets shut down and he gets transferred, how hard would it be for you to leave Guernsey?
Very hard. Also exciting. Who knows what the future will bring. I think there's so many good things about Guernsey, and Guernsey's always a place that we know that we can come home to.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have family here? Does he have family here?
I have no family here.
Okay.
But my family is now his family. So
Okay.
I'm very blessed to have a wonderful mother-in-law and father-in-law in Wheatland, and we taught gardening. And yeah, the friends that we've made along the way have made a huge difference.
Sure. How did you get into the master gardening program?
I think I might have seen something just online. Maybe started just Googling and thinking, oh, my tomatoes they're pretty terrible. Is there someone that can help? And I think one summer I had some aphids on my lettuce, and I called the Guernsey Master Gardeners in a panic, and I said, what can I do? And it was so fun. And then I just realized that there's this network out there. There's this entire community that people who aren't into this stuff, like, they don't even realize that it's out there. But it's seriously, I've made the best friends and made the best connections, and we all talk a similar language, which is really fun.
Sure. So you went from being a student of plants to an actual teacher and a master gardener yourself.
Yeah.
And so do you get a lot of people that are calling you and asking you how to do this or how to do that or things like that?
I have several. Mostly it's through Facebook Messenger or Facebook. I'm a huge part of the Wyoming gardening Facebook page.
Sure.
And that's so fun because somebody will put up a post and ask about a weed or can somebody help me identify what's wrong with my tree? And it's lots of fun just to give them a simple encouragement and say you're doing great and try this. So
Answer their questions. That's amazing. And I see how like your background in teaching really lent itself well for you to take this next step into your life. And to be able to do what you're doing that you love. I mean, getting up every day and seeing your babies growing. I mean, it's got to be an incredible step for you. And
it is. My baby plants and my baby humans.
Yeah.
They're all growing.
Baby humans and baby plants. That's awesome. Well, I guess it's not too far. So even if you did have to leave Guernsey, and I'm sure that would leave a huge hole for all of us here in the community, but you've been, you know what it was like to live as a wanderer for many years.
Yes.
And
yes,
so,
sir.
Definitely. I think when I look at you and I read between your lines, I see somebody that's easily adaptable. You're kind of like your plants. They adapt to the temperatures, they adapt to the rain, they adapt to the winds here in Wyoming. How much loss do you get from the weather here?
Quite a bit. It really depends on the year, and there's certain tricks to avoid that. I have a rule that I never plant my tomatoes until the cotton is flying in the air.
Okay.
And that's the cotton from the cottonwood trees down by the river. And
how did you know that?
I just from observing, I suppose.
So you picked that up here?
When the cotton flies, and it does the same thing in the fall, and that's when you know that the season's over.
I kind of have a feeling that that's the name of your next book, When the Cotton Flies.
That would be cool.
So I think you need to write that, not just a thesis anymore, but just actually an actual book of some of your experiences and things like this. So those that are listening by television right now, you heard it first here, and I was the one that actually gave her the idea to write her book. When the cotton, what is it?
When the cotton flies.
When the Cotton Flies. Oh, what a great title.
Yeah.
I might steal that before you actually write your book. I don't know. So what flowers, what plants do you market most of any of your?
Great question. Most of my bouquets are, they're called binary giant zinnias. And I started out with these wonderful zinnia seeds, and since I've had those seeds, I started hybridizing them. So once in a while I'll get this terrific zinnia, but half of it might be pink and half of it might be yellow, and it's so odd. So I'm starting to cultivate. Excuse me. I'm starting to cultivate my own plants.
So wait a minute, you're becoming a biologist at the same time? You're breeding your own plants? Oh dear God.
I know.
Is there anything you don't do?
But the zinnia are so fun because they're so vibrant, and they've got a long straight stem, and right now I've got about 3 rows of zinnias. In the past I've had up to 8 or 10 rows, and so those are a big seller. Also gladiolas, and those are growing from a bulb. We've got daisies, lantana, goodness, all kinds of stuff, cosmos, sunflowers, pretty much anything that you can maintain here.
Sure. When we were in Michigan, the big one there was the tulips. But the growing season was so short for those. I mean, they're there and then they're gone. It's like lilacs. They're beautiful, and I think of graduation when I think of lilacs, because they're always coming out at the graduation time.
And peonies.
And they're peonies and they're gone. So how do you germinate, breed plants, if you will? You like cut seeds in half and put them together, or?
That's a really good question. What happens is that you have to wait till the plants are mature and flowering, and then you take a paintbrush and play around with the pollen a little bit. Take pollen from one plant and just delicately put it just in the middle of the other plant. And then you'll see the colors start to change over the years. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's really fun.
You know, there's a lot of people that see now, they have like different color, let's say, than the roses. They have blue roses and black roses and green roses. Is that done by genetics and breeding, or is that done with the dye that's actually put into the waters?
A lot of the commercial flowers that you find at the grocery stores are not only not from America, they're shipped from overseas, but they are dyed. They'll have a white daisy and they'll literally put it in a cup of blue ink, and that's how you get those almost neon colors, unnatural colors.
Sure. Yeah, and that's interesting that you say that about transferring them. One of your big pushes here, you're an advocate for growing in Wyoming and buying in Wyoming and keeping our dollars here in the state, which is the same thing that Clayton's doing over there with the food coalition right now.
Ciao, Clayton.
Yeah. We're actually going to have them on that whole panel with the Vistas and everybody on Homespun.
And now is that the food
weeks.
Coalition?
That's the food coalition. Yes.
I've been wanting to get a part of that.
Yeah, well, you need to come along with us and be a part of that, because that's really what we're here for, is to really put everybody in the state on the same page, to get the small and the medium range producers so that they have a voice here just as well as everybody else does. So I think that's very important. So you're really a strong advocate. When you get plants from a different country or shipped, in refrigerator cars or whatever, tell me about the quality of those plants.
They're usually about 3 weeks old by the time they get to the stores here in the United States. So you can...
That's a good estimate.
You can roughly assume that any bouquet that you buy from your general grocery store is going to be around about 2 to 3 weeks old at least. And so they'll maybe last 5 or 6 days. My flowers last 2 weeks or more.
Okay, so what I see is when I do have a significant other in my life, I see the roses go like this, and I show that for camera. They go like this, and the roses, it's like their heads drop off.
Yeah.
Is there any way to stop that, or what happens when it gets to that point? They're done, right?
Well, you can add a tiny little bit of pinch of sugar and just a drop of bleach to the water, and that will kill the bacteria. And if you do that, excuse me, if you continue to do that every day, that will definitely extend the vase life of your plant. You want the water that your flower is sitting in to look like something that you might want to drink. If it looks a little bit gross, that's probably what the flower is also saying. Yeah.
Okay. Just another tip here on Homespun from the master gardener, Sarah, which is a really good tip, especially for those of us that so easily kill our plants. It's a nice thing to know. Also, for those of us men who leave things to the last minute and realize that we need to buy flowers, the florists are closed and the grocery store is the only thing open at 9 o'clock on the night before you're supposed to bring the flowers home. So so those are some good tips for us, Sarah.
And Mark, I don't know if you knew this, but the majority of people that buy flowers are women. The women buy flowers for themselves, and women buy flowers for other women. And so, strangely enough, I love that men are coming out and getting those bouquets for their loved ones. But also women, it makes people feel good. It just brings joy. So
I want to be an advocate for. I'm coming on camera. I'm going to be an advocate. Women out there that are buying all these flowers, start buying flowers for your men.
Oh.
I mean, we like flowers too. I mean,
Yes.
it perks us up. I mean,
Absolutely.
when's the last time you heard a guy getting a shipment of flowers at the office for Valentine's
Well,
Day?
you know what I'll be doing next week.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, you heard that first here, and that was my tip for the master gardeners here. Because I think that's kind of a cool thing. I can probably count on, let's see, one finger how many times I've gotten flowers in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And it's because I haven't always been the one to do that. It's just that's just not done in this country. But I think we need to advocate for that, to be advocates for that the men should get some flowers.
Yes,
We
it
should get
makes
some equal
people
time.
feel good.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman or kids love them too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Sarah, it's been a joy meeting with you today on
Thank
Homespun,
you.
and you've given us such great advice and information about you. And again, we're here in Guernsey, Wyoming, and you're here on Homespun, and this is Cowan's Flower Shop, correct?
Cowan Flowers. And you
Cowan's
can find
Flowers.
me on Facebook.
And you can find her on Facebook. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Heart and soul, I fell in love with you, heart and soul, the way a fool would do madly, because you held me tight and you stole a kiss in the night. Heart and soul, I begged to be adored, lost control, and tumbled overboard madly. That magic night we kissed right there in the moonlight. Oh, but your lips were very thrilling, thrilling. Never before were mine so willing, willing. Now I see what one embrace can do. Look at me, it's got me loving you madly. That little kiss you stole held all my heart and my soul. Took a walking past your house late last night. All the shades were pulled and drawn way down tight. From within the dim light cast two silhouettes on the shade. Oh, what a lovely couple though they made. Put his arms around your waist, he held you tight. Kisses I could almost taste in the night. Wondered why I'm not the guy whose silhouettes on the shade I couldn't hide the tears in my eyes. I thought about taking some anger management courses right about then, but I thought, shoot, there's just not enough time. I'm just gonna go down and knock the snot out of him. I lost control and rang your bell. Well, I was sore, let me in or else I'll beat down your door. Went to strangers who had been two silhouettes on the shade. Said to myself, you're on the wrong block. Rushed down to your house with wings on my feet. Loved you like I'd never loved you, my sweet. Thought that you and I could be two silhouettes on the shade all of our days. Two silhouettes on the shade. Heart and soul, I fell in love with you, heart and soul, the way a fool would do madly. Because you held me tight, you stole a kiss in the night. Heart and soul, I begged to be adored, lost control, and tumbled overboard madly. That magic night we kissed right there in the moonlight. We kissed right there